Aston Martin is getting ready to debut a completely revamped version of its troubled 2026 F1 car, and we've learned some shocking revelations about why Adrian Newey's first project with his new team has fallen so far short of expectations. There should be no reason why this team shouldn't be competing at the very front of the grid. Brand new high-spec facilities, a car design led by the most successful F1 designer of all time, an engine built by the same company that powered Max Verstappen's 4 World Championships, plus the driving skill of one of F1's best ever in Fernando Alonso. All the ingredients are there in theory, but the reality is embarrassingly far away from that. The 2026 Aston Martin Honda is comfortably the slowest car on the grid, even more so now Cadillac introduced a substantial upgrade in Austria. And Aston Martin only has a point thanks to a fortuitous 10th place for Alonso in Monaco. When Newey's first Aston Martin broke cover midway through Barcelona pre-season testing, we at the race all got very excited about how different and innovative the car looked compared to the competition. After all, that's what we've come to expect from any project Newey touches: unconventional thinking that usually leads to ultimate success. But this has been the total opposite of that. The 2026 Aston Martin Honda is underpowered, unreliable, lacks downforce, is massively overweight, we understand in the region of 10 to 15 kilos, so costing somewhere between 3/10 and half a second per lap, and so difficult and underwhelming to drive that the current iteration is shortly headed for the scrap heap. Newey, who confirmed he battled health problems during his first year with the team, admits the team's late start on the project, they didn't start work on the car until mid-March 2025, means it didn't have time to explore alternative concepts, so settled understandably on the one pushed by Newey. But doing so threw up some challenges the team didn't anticipate. Aston Martin has previously been very coy about when its first major upgrade will appear, but Newey has now confirmed it will arrive for the last race before F1's August break in Hungary, and is unlikely to tie in with Honda's long-awaited first engine update. As Honda continues work on its revamped engine and can't say exactly when things will be ready for introduction, Aston Martin feels getting its upgraded car out before the summer break is important for establishing a development path over the remainder of the season, knowing that Audi, which has produced one of the quickest cars in the midfield, sits just 1 point clear of Aston Martin in the championship. While there has been a lot of chatter about the Aston Martin upgrade amounting to a B-spec car, we understand the changes being worked on by Newey do not amount to a complete departure from the current aerodynamic concept. So it's not that Newey has suddenly lost his genius. Rather, the revisions are focused on addressing key weaknesses that emerged as the AMR 26 was brought to life. The racers learned that the decision to go for a total car revamp rather than incremental upgrades was made as early as before the season opener in Australia. Such was the extent of the original specifications' brutal deficiencies. The troubled pre-season testing period in Barcelona and Bahrain, which was severely hampered by vibration issues triggered by the marriage of the brand new Honda engine with the chassis, exposed not only weaknesses with the car itself, but also the wider Aston Martin organisation. Newey has been known throughout his career for wanting to push his car designs to the limit, but this approach within a relatively immature organisation like Aston Martin, which has been through a rapid period of expansion and adjustment since Lawrence Stroll rescued Force India from administration in 2018, triggered some unintended consequences. Weaknesses with the team's new simulator, the need to better understand feedback from its relatively immature wind tunnel, as well as a requirement to improve design and manufacturing processes, plus weak staff interaction, all contributed to a car that did not work as intended and was massively overweight. Newey's focus at Aston Martin's Silverstone factory has been as much on improving systems and working practices back at base as it has been on designing new parts for the revised car. He says the team has started producing more parts in-house to try and speed up processes, improve efficiency, and give the team better quality control, better responsiveness, and a tighter feedback loop from research to design to manufacturing. Newey confirms the revamp of AMR 26 will involve a reworking of its major aerodynamic parts to help deliver a much lighter car that produces more downforce and is better balanced. The team has made significant efforts to lighten the gearbox and the chassis, which has also meant re-homologating and crash testing the car. Newey says the front suspension will remain unchanged, but the rear suspension will be slightly revised, and the new nose and substantially revised aerodynamic surfaces should all add up to a large step in performance, as well as a significant weight reduction. Once the baseline is established with the revamped car, then the team has scope to bring further improvements over the second half of the year. Aston Martin's decision to throw everything at a major car revamp rather than improve its baseline AMR26 in incremental steps was also heavily influenced by cost cap considerations. Teams these days are restricted in terms of how much resource they can throw at car developments, and they have to be meticulous in terms of balancing out what to spend and when to spend it so they don't run out of money too soon. Every part introduced is now approved by accountants to make sure the cost versus performance gain ratio is right. Front-loading development expenses has its advantages in terms of making the most of a car that's already working well. But for Aston Martin, aware of how far off the pace it was going to be and how much extra performance was needed to climb into point-scoring contention, any early expenditure didn't come close to passing the cost versus benefit threshold. Even more so when you consider that reducing car weight is one of the most expensive and complicated things for teams to execute. Just look at serial championship winner Red Bull. It's taken that team until the recent Austrian Grand Prix, round 8 of the season, to shed excess bulk from the RB22, estimated to be in the 6 to 7 kilo range, and get it close to the current weight limit. Alonso in particular has voiced frustration at his team's lack of incremental upgrades, and has even questioned how rival teams can afford to develop at the rate they have so far, suggesting that some must have money machines in their factory. But he understands and accepts the need for Aston Martin to pour resources limited by regulation into a bigger project like this that is targeted at properly transforming his team's dire situation. This has led to frequent questions about Alonso's own future with the team and whether he'll extend his F1 career past his 46th birthday next summer. Alonso has suggested many times that he'll make a decision on his future in the summer, but Newey hopes Alonso will stay on for 2027 if the upgrade works as expected. So the hope is that this strategy will convince Alonso to extend his driving career, as well as build a platform for the team to build on for the second half of this season. And because of the money saved under the cost cap, Aston Martin should be able to outdevelop rivals who have been spending more during the first half of the season and could soon hit their cost cap limit. Honda's upgraded power unit, which is believed to revolve around improvements to the engine's combustion process as well as friction reduction, may now not come until after the summer break. Honda itself remains coy about when exactly the upgrade will arrive, with work ongoing on its dynos at its R&D facility in Sakura, Japan. Its repeated line is that the upgrade will appear around summer. What Honda is more definitive about is that it isn't going to make full use of allowances under F1's additional development and upgrade opportunities, or ADAWO system, to introduce 2 new specifications this year. Having been deemed to be, let's face it, significantly more than 4% adrift of the benchmark Red Bull engine by the FIA's recent analysis, Honda joins Ferrari and Audi in being allowed a double step over the remainder of the 2026 campaign, as well as 2 more in 2027. However, Honda has said the upgrade coming later this year will be its only homologation change for the current campaign, with a focus then on shifting towards next year. Before the recent Barcelona Grand Prix, we also sat down with Honda Racing Corporation President Koji Watanabe, who admitted the gap between expectations and the reality of the Aston Martin Honda project this year was much larger than anticipated. All the ingredients were there on paper for this Newey super team to fight for the World Championship, but the reality has been a massive disappointment. How has Honda gone from winning consecutive championships with Red Bull to being at the back of the grid with the richest team in the midfield? From Watanabe's perspective, the answer lies in there being so many new things for Honda this year. Brand new rules, new fuel and lubricant suppliers in Aramco and Valvoline, a new team partner in Aston Martin, and a completely new way of working to establish. Back in Australia, Newey rather curtly suggested Honda had allowed a costly brain drain from its F1 program in the time between originally pulling out of F1 at the end of 2021 and then deciding in early 2023 to return with Aston Martin for the revised 50-50 internal combustion engine battery formula introduced for this season. Watanabe denies this gap left Honda with a group of engineers that knew nothing about F1, but admits it took time to convince some of them to return to its F1 program from the wider Honda group, as well as recruit new ones. The clear gap between Aston Martin's expectation of Honda and the reality discovered at the start of the season, with an underpowered and barely drivable engine that was vibrating so badly the drivers feared permanent nerve damage, exposed tension in the working relationship between team and supplier that has taken time to ease. Watanabe revealed that the extent of those engine vibrations was no greater than the degree Honda experienced with its previous partner Red Bull. So clearly there were some fundamental problems with that troubled original Aston Martin chassis and transmission specification that exasperated the situation. But Honda refuses to go into detail about why that suddenly became an issue. All we know for sure is that modifications to both power unit and chassis appear to have put this to bed, and now full focus is on delivering that single update to the engine specification the team hopes will align with a totally revamped and lighter car, to lift Aston Martin from embarrassment to something like the force of nature we all expected it would be originally.